So, water quality improvements. New York City has invested billions and billions of dollars in projects to improve water quality in our surrounding water bodies. So you'll notice a difference between the map here in 1985, and you'll notice this red section here. This red section in particular, and it's not limited just there. There's a smaller one right here, which is coming out of Newtown Creek. Those red sections in particular symbolize the fact that there is more than 2,000 colonies of fecal coliform. As a reminder, fecal coliform is part of a family of coliform. Coliform is a family of bacteria. So the way it works is there's coliform, which is a family of bacteria. A subheading of that coliform is fecal coliform, because that's what's typically found in feces, whether it's animal or human. And then one of those species under that heading is Enterococcus. Enterococcus in particular is something that we, meaning we human beings, tend to release when we do number 2 in the bathroom, or for some in the street if they're homeless. And if it ends up in our waterway, and if there's too many colonies, too many meaning really over 100, but in particular if it's over 2,000 colonies, that's what would be found in this circled red section here. So as a quick note, as far as how do you count colonies? What scientists do is I'm actually going to erase this to make it a little easier to share. Okay. So what scientists do is they go to specified water quality stations. And I did share a map of that when we went to the Open Data NYC. So let's say you have a water quality station up here, you have another one here, you have another one here, etc. I don't remember how many there are for the Hudson River, but there's plenty, right? And so with each of these stations, a scientist or a group of scientists will go to those stations and they'll collect samples of water. They bring those samples to the lab, and labs are actually spread across New York City. They bring it to their lab and they do what's called a serial dilution. Bacteria, when it's in a waterway, there's so many that if they were to just put one drop of that water into a petri dish filled with agar or sugar, or put into something that has broth in it, there would be too many, and it would be very difficult for the scientists to be able to do a count. So what they do is they take a small sample out, they put, say, 10 milliliters into, or let's say 5 milliliters of the sample into a 10 milliliter tube. Then from there, they fill the rest up to 10 milliliters of deionized water or distilled water. Distilled water, as another side note, is water that has nothing else except H2O. Drinking water, river water, not only has water, it has minerals. The minerals are actually needed for us to live, to actually be healthy. They're the trace minerals. Deionized water takes all those minerals out. They put the rest of that deionized water in a tube. Then from there, they mix it. Then from there, take out another, let's say 5 milliliters, which remember is still diluted. They put into another tube, and they continue on. They usually do this up to 10 times. Once they get to that 10th tube, they fill it up with that deionized water. They take a small sample out, put it into either a broth or agar. Put it into a special oven for bacteria. Most likely it's heated up to 98 degrees because the Enterococcus and fecal coliform, it comes from our stomach and it's used to our body's temperature. They let it stay and grow for a certain number of days. They take it out, and then from there, they can see the colonies. If they see that there's a certain number of colonies, from there, because they know how fast bacteria grows or reproduces due to mitosis, they can backtrack to see how many would actually be in the original sample of that water, right? So for every 100 milliliters, there are a certain number of bacteria using this method. So that's generally what happens. So a couple of other things to note that we actually talked about during our lecture, during our class, is how this information is shared, right? So we have on the 1985 slide or 1985 map, all sorts of colors. We have the red, we have the yellow. Yellow means that the number of colonies is between 200 to 2,000. We have some green, which means it's 100 to 200. And then below, or rather, yeah, below 100 colonies per 100 milliliters. On the 1985 model, there's some right here, one small spot here, a small spot here, and here, which is very random, and here, right? So the reason, some things to keep in mind with this map is how they share information. So what generally happens is the scientists, or rather the Department of Environmental Protection, they actually split up the waterways, not in terms of the individual waterways, but they group them together. And what they do is they average out the results of those water quality tests throughout in one entire year, right? So overall, that is totally fine, right? Because it just gives you a general sense of how well or not well a water body is doing. Some challenges to that, if you don't know that sort of information, you don't have that context, it can create the sense that there isn't still more work to do. So if you're looking at, for example, this water body, right, where it's just all blue for the most part, with some exceptions, especially up here, right, up there, and up there. And there's just some exceptions, like right here is a small pocket. It's a teeny tiny little pocket right here at the Gowanus Canal, and another little pocket right here, right? Overall, this can give you the sense that, oh, we're fine. We don't need to continue to improve water quality. That is not true, right? Because again, remember that they have combined certain numbers of water bodies into different regions. It makes it simpler to share with the public. It does provide a sense that there has been progress, which there has been, but unless these maps are shared alongside information about what has been done and what continues to need to be done, then yes, it can lead to misinformation, which is what we don't want. That's why context is important when sharing data, such as these maps, or data like with what you're going to be working on with your projects. So the harbor, New York City harbors today, because of the improvements to water quality, wildlife has started to return. And some examples of wildlife include dolphins, whales, shellfish, and fish that normally do need higher water quality environments to be able to thrive and survive. And those improvements to water quality include higher and more consistent dissolved oxygen concentrations. There's less nitrogen and phosphorus. There's less harmful microorganisms. And in particular, there's less enterococcus / fecal coliform, which normally can thrive in brackish water. And remember that brackish water is a mixture of both salt and fresh water mixed together. Another thing I did not share during our normal lecture was whales. So if you go to, let's say, Coney Island, Sheepshead Bay, Jamaica Bay, you're not going to see whales. just not. But maybe you might see dolphins. The reason I talk about both dolphins and whales is that there are scientists that go a little bit closer towards the Atlantic Ocean and further away from Jamaica Bay, but it's still part of Jamaica Bay. From there, you can actually see whales, which is really, really interesting and awesome. I haven't been able to do that. None of the scientists that I'm aware of at DEP, they don't go whale watching, but there are other scientists who work in other universities who study aquatic animals, and I actually know of a couple of high school students who have gone with these scientists and have gone whale watching and taken observational data of these really magnificent creatures. And so with that, I'm going to stop here. I'll continue on with this lecture after we have